They laughed first. Not the polite kind of laughter either. The kind that slips out when people think they read superior and don't even bother hiding it. The kind that assumes value only comes from logos, price tags, and European accents. It happened inside a glossy pop-up market in Singapore, the kind where white walls, minimalist lighting, and background jazz music made even bottled water feel expensive. Booths were lined with luxury startups, artisan-inspired brands, and designers who spoke about sustainability while selling bags that cost more than a month's rent in Manila. At the far corner, almost hidden behind a column, sat a small booth that didn't quite fit in. No LED lights. No fancy signage. Just a hand-painted cardboard sign that read, "Handwoven bags, made in the Philippines." Behind the table stood a Filipino woman in her late 40s, petite, wearing a simple blouse and flats that had clearly walked many miles. Her name was Aling Rosa. Her hands were rough, the kind shaped by years of weaving pandan leaves, abaca fibers, and buri palms, materials her family had worked with for generations. On the table were bags, not flashy, not branded, but beautiful. Each one was handwoven with intricate patterns, subtle color gradients, and stitching so precise it almost felt alive. They smelled faintly of dried leaves and sunlight, not factories. People walked by. Some slowed down. Most didn't. A group of young fashion buyers stopped in front of the booth. One of them picked up a bag, squeezed it, and laughed. "This looks like something my grandmother would use to go to the wet market," she said. Another added, "No offense, but this isn't luxury. This is provincial." They giggled, put the bag back carelessly, and walked away. Aling Rosa smiled politely, the way you smile when you've learned not to argue with people who already made up their minds. A few minutes later, a man in a tailored suit stopped by. He examined a bag, nodded slightly, then asked, "How much?" $80, Aling Rosa replied softly. He raised an eyebrow. "For this?" "Yes, sir, it takes 3 days to make," he scoffed. "You might want to lower your expectations." He left without another word. The laughter continued throughout the morning. Influencers passed by, snapping photos of each other in front of luxury booths, barely glancing at the Filipino corner. Someone whispered loudly, "Why is this even here?" What no one noticed was the woman standing quietly a few meters away, watching. She didn't dress like the others. No flashy jewelry, no oversized sunglasses. Just a clean white shirt, dark trousers, and shoes so understated they screamed confidence. Her hair was tied back neatly, streaked with silver. She carried herself like someone who didn't need to prove anything. Her name was Margot Delacroix. She was the owner and creative director of Maison Delacroix, one of the most expensive and influential handbag brands in Europe. She was known for one thing above all else, an obsessive eye for craftsmanship. Margot had come to the pop-up market unannounced, without assistance, without press. She liked observing without being noticed. It helped her see the truth, who was selling stories and who was selling substance. She'd already walked past dozens of booths unimpressed. Too much marketing, too little soul. Then she noticed the corner booth, not because it was loud, but because it was quiet. She watched as people laughed, dismissed, and moved on. She watched Aling Rosa straighten a bag after someone dropped it. She watched her fingers, how they handled the pieces with care, almost affection. Margot stepped closer. She picked up a bag. The moment her fingers touched the weave, her expression changed. She felt it immediately. Tension, control. Consistent fiber thickness. No shortcuts. She turned the bag inside out. The stitching was flawless. Not machine perfect. Human perfect, the kind of perfection that comes from muscle memory, not software. Margot inhaled slowly. "This," she said. "Who made this?" Aling Rosa smiled nervously. "I did, ma'am. With women from my village." Margot looked at her sharply. "How many years have you been weaving?" Aling Rosa hesitated. "Since I was a child, my mother taught me." And her mother before her, Margot nodded. And the design? Mine, Rosa said. But inspired by old patterns, Margot turned the bag over again, studying the symmetry, the balance, the negative space. People nearby began to notice. Someone whispered, "Isn't that—" Margot ignored them. "This weave," she said slowly, "is more complex than anything my atelier produces." Rosa blinked. "I'm sorry." Margot looked up, eyes sharp but not unkind. "You are not selling bags," she said. "You are selling architecture." The surrounding booths went quiet. A few people laughed awkwardly, thinking it was a joke. Margot wasn't smiling. She asked, "Do you know why people laughed at your work?" Rosa shook her head. "Because it is simple." "No," Margot said. "Because they don't know how to look." She placed the bag gently on the table. "How much did you say this cost?" $80, Rosa repeated. Margot closed her eyes for a moment, then she laughed. Not mockingly, in disbelief. "This," she said, "would sell for at least €6,000 in Paris." The air shifted. A fashion buyer scoffed. "Come on." Margot turned to him slowly. "What is your name?" He stammered it. She nodded. "You represent a brand that copies indigenous patterns and prints them on leather made in factories. You call it heritage." She gestured toward Rosa. "This is heritage." The man went silent. Margot turned back to Rosa. "Who owns your designs?" "I do," Rosa said cautiously. "But sometimes buyers ask us to copy other bags." Margot's jaw tightened. "Never do that again." She pulled out a business card and placed it on the table. "I want to work with you," she said. "But not the way you think." Rosa looked at the card like it might explode. Margot continued, "I do not want to steal your work. I do not want to rebrand it. I do not want to turn it into a trend." She leaned closer. "I want to build a line with you. Your name, your story, your control." People began gathering. Phones came out. Whispers spread. "That's Margot Delacroix." "No way." Margot raised her voice just enough to be heard. "For years," she said, "luxury fashion has pretended innovation comes from Europe. That genius comes from design schools. That value is created in boardrooms." She looked around the room. "Genius," she said, pointing to Rosa, "has been sitting quietly in villages, being laughed at." Rosa's eyes filled with tears. "Ma'am, I don't understand this world." Margot softened. "Then let me help you navigate it without losing yourself." She turned to the crowd. "From today onward, any brand that claims craftsmanship while ignoring artisans like her is lying." The room was silent. Margot picked up her phone and sent one message. Within hours, the story spread. Luxury icon discovers Filipino artisan at pop-up market. Photos of the bags flooded social media. Experts zoomed in on the weave. Designers debated. Consumers asked questions. Orders came in. Not for Maison Delacroix. For Rosa. Margot insisted on one condition. Prices would rise, but profits would go to the women who made the bags. Training programs would be built. Designs would be protected legally. No shortcuts. Months later, at Paris Fashion Week, something unexpected happened. Instead of a European model, the runway opened with a video of a small Filipino village. Women weaving under the sun, children laughing, hands moving with purpose. The bags that followed weren't labeled Delacroix. They were labeled Rosa Handwoven, Philippines. The audience stood, not because it was trendy, but because they finally understood. The same people who once laughed now applauded. And somewhere in the front row, Margot smiled not because she found a product, but because she found a genius the world had been ignoring. And Rosa, she still wove bags. But now, when people laughed, it was out of disbelief, because they couldn't believe it took the world so long to see what had been there all along.